through the Spiral Dynamics listserv initially, so we had this virtual friendship going on. And I decided anytime John posted something on the Spiral Dynamics listserv, I needed to read it. So I finally sent him a note and I said we should talk, and then I guess we started Skyping, and then long story short, John and Ian are now co-teaching the SQ21 certification class in the UK periodically for people for whom Europe is an easier place to get to for a live workshop. So I'm very grateful for all that support. And John has a new book out, which I'm sure he'll tell you about.
Thank you, Cindy. So I don't know whether anybody else was aware yesterday, but I lost count during the video we watched at the end of the day of the number of times that the word possibility was used. And it felt like a really good link for me into the title of the book, which is The Science of Possibility. And so I hope I'm going to give some clarity as to why that title was used. And I picked up on the phrase to put up for the title of this conversation, surfing the possibility wave. It has a subtitle, which I can't think who I put this in for. But aside from the joke that obviously is, there is something serious underneath this, which is about the way that we connect with the world beyond us, and what it has a lot to say about who we really are. I was also very taken with this comment from the video. When we believe it, we will see it. And I want to start with a story about where my belief came from. About 20 years ago, I was in a training which was about a hands-on healing process. It came out of Silva Mind Control. It was taught by Jose Silva himself. At the end of which, some people came up to me. They were gay guys who were very concerned about what they were witnessing going on around them in the beginning of the AIDS, the rise of AIDS, all the fear that was coming up about it, and they were seeing people dying, and they wanted to start a group that was going to do healing. And so they enlisted my involvement in that along with several other people, and the first person we worked with, at the time we engaged with him, he was a guy of 6'2", and he was down to 100 pounds in weight. His family had called in the priest to administer the last rites. He was not conscious, present in the room. He was just there. The group started working with him, 3 people going in doing a hands-off healing process. This was at the time when even nobody knew whether AIDS was still, how it was transmitted. So a hands-off healing process, 3 people, 3 times a day. After a week, Peter was conscious. He was engaging with his own healing. That's the point at which I joined in the process. It continued for another week, after which he was capable of getting up and taking himself to the bathroom. After 4 weeks of the engagement, he left the hospital, and he had been pronounced clear of all HIV infection at the end of 4 weeks. Now, I mean, that's a pretty stunning thing to be involved with, but I'm also bringing it here because what does it say about what's the relationship between us individually as beings and the environment that exists around us and with other people? How does all that work? What kind of reality does it take for that to work? What kind of cosmos are we living in? So this all sat within something I was already engaged with, which was I'd recognized that the science I'd been brought up with didn't work, and was it just intensified my journey on that. I want just to give a little bit of a framework so that you have a thought about what are your conceptions of the boundaries around body and consciousness and soul and spirit, what those mean to you, and where is the dividing line, and what's the connectivity for you with what's beyond you. So Timmy's story, this you could find in Deepak Chopra's Quantum Healing. It's the story of a young boy called Timmy who had multiple personality disorder, and it's a story originating from Daniel Goleman. In one of his personalities, Timmy is allergic to orange juice, and he comes out in hives. When his personality changes, his hives disappear. So there's another personality in which he is not allergic to orange juice at all. How does that work? What kind of body does that mean that we have? What is it that is such that the immune cells kind of wait for the allergen to arrive and then decide whether they're going to have an allergic reaction or not? And as Deepak Chopra says, you know, it's as if the molecules are making a decision which defies physical science, as if salt sometimes feels like being salty and sometimes doesn't.
This machine does 200 flips per second. When left unattended, it performs in a statistically normal way, and over time, it approximates a chance mean of 100. But when an operator is present, wishing for the output to be higher or lower, the output deviates very slightly from the chance expectation. The effect shown on these devices is small. Only a few flips in 10,000 are influenced by the operator. But those few are more than contemporary physics can explain. And the effect is not limited to these electronic devices. The Pear Lab has explored many sources of random event generation.
A little shift to the right. Compounding the results across all of our experiments, all of the time we've been operating, you then come out saying that the results you find in this composite database are unlikely by chance to better than 1 part in 10 to the 12th. That's 1 part in a trillion. This is far more stringent than any science experiment I'm aware of requires for its validation.
There's a lot of what people know for certain that just ain't so out there in the world, and most of it is in science. See, quantum physics is actually inadequate. There are all sorts of flaws with it, which I haven't the time to go into. And there's also a trap that it leads us into, where a lot of people in the New Age or New Thought will say, well, when we want to go against science, everything is energy, as if that explains something. And actually, it leaves out all the explanation that's really necessary of, okay, so what is it that energy does when it becomes matter? How does that function? So there are all sorts of myths in biology. You know, we're trying to answer these questions of what makes the body work, where did we come from, and what's our relationship with our environment. And included in the myths, the heart is not just a pump. You can find this on the Heart Math Institute, that there's more information going from the heart to the brain. The pulse of the heart starts before the heart is even formed in the fetus. I need to not go into too much detail. Genes are not single discrete units that determine identifiable characteristics in an organism, except in a few exceptional cases. Genetics, the way that the body is built, is incredibly complicated. The DNA and the chromosomes don't determine everything about development. They're not a complete instruction set. Cells are presented as passive blobs of tissue, which they're not. Bruce Lipton is full of this information, which some of you will probably have read. And then there's the question of how do you even have a sense of what it means to have 50 trillion cells? Can you get your head around that? Because I can't. I simply cannot. But when you imagine a number like that, what does it take to coordinate the activity of a body at that level? And actually there are so many mechanisms, levels of operation which create coherence in the body. Again, I go into a lot of this in the book. For now, I just want you to recognize that there is a very different picture of the body than the one you will get from science. And the same thing applies to evolution. Are genes the entire mechanism? No, they're not. Goodness me, I'm going to have to speed up. Life is a fight against scarcity. All of this is mythology. There's a little tidbit. 500 million of your skin cells have replaced themselves since I started this presentation. So I'm going to cut to the chase. Myths and realities in physics, lots of mythology. At the center of what really happens in the world are energetic structures. Now this little device comes out of Buckminster Fuller, but it also is used by Nassim Haramein. You imagine an energetic structure, this thing's called a vector equilibrium, which can actually pulse energy very fast. And then you imagine that this structure can also rotate in all dimensions, that it spins and it forms a vortex. At the center of that vortex, it can create what's called a singularity, which is a black hole. That is possible in every single molecule. At the center of that black hole, of every single molecule, is a connectivity into a field of information, which is what the universe has underneath it. What is it that causes matter to form the way it does? It's a field of information that the universe has. It is what the universe knows of itself, and it's what it's built from the first impulse of creation. You are part of the unfolding of that creation. You are continuing that impulse of putting new information into the universe. That's where conscious evolution is happening in us. The other thing to be aware of is that at the center of every one of those singularities in communication, in you, that pulse of electrons in and out of existence is going into the information field. So you think you have a boundary with the information field. You don't. You're in it, active in it all the time. So when you have a connection which may be intuitive, or that healing process which is taking place with another human being, the place that that's coming from is that you are existing in the information field, and you are altering the information field of everything that is around you, and you can affect that with your intention. That's the bottom line. I've missed out a lot that I would have liked to have been able to tell you, but that's the crucial thing. To know, to understand that you are a boundaryless, infinite being, and engage with life from that new place.
But the last bit, so to understand that we've got boundless and we're infinite, any steps of what we're supposed to do with that?
Recognizing it is a good start, but I think it's the engagement with the potency of your intuition and with the potency of your being. One of the places that I think the world is struggling with is how many of you have been reading books on manifestation for 20 years or more? You know, Catherine Ponder or all of these things. They all take us into the place of engagement through the mind. But when you've got 70 trillion or 50 trillion cells, however many it is, that are engaging in that field, you have to go into a place of beingness. If you're going to influence what's going on, you have to do it not just from your conscious mind. Actually, it's not very much from the conscious mind at all. So that would be my first answer to what the steps are, is go into all the things that we've been talking about anyway are about going into beingness, but it's engaging then with what is possible when who you be is an action.
Who you be is an action. That sounds like a tagline for something. All right, who else? Anybody else? One more? Okay, Barry, me.
Well, my question, can we just get this on a call?
Yeah. So a continuing ed call so we can get some more? Where do we get that? Yes.
Do I have a book?
He has a book.
There's one left, but it's available on lulu.com if you want to order it. It is on Amazon, but the price isn't right yet, so just wait until the price comes down to something that looks like sensible, which will be, and it's called The Science of Possibility, Patterns of Connected Consciousness. Because everything that I'm describing turns into patterns of the connected consciousness, which is what the universe knows. There are now no books left.
There are no books
And she'll sell it for $35. Bidding war.
You know, I sometimes tell people when they come to me and say, explain turquoise on the spiral, I say, go talk to John Freeman. Because I think John has a really good grasp, and I don't feel like I do. So I think this is great. Thank you.
That would be a great call, too.
A great call. Turquoise on the spiral. So we'll sign you up for a continuing ed call, John.
It's a deal.
Okay.
I shall
Jim,
enjoy
you
that.
got one quick thing.
Just real quick. Michael Beckwith recently had a great statement. He says, we suffer from intention deficit disorder.
He's so good with those. He comes
Yeah,
up with those great
I like that.
phrases. Intention deficit disorder. Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.